So my name is Abdu Flores. I'm a student at Dallas College, and I'm in my media writing class just asking, why do video games take so long to make? And why are they so complex? What does development look like?
Okay, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Christopher Curra. I'm the lead faculty and curriculum chair for the Dallas College video game design program. Been with the college for probably around 12 years, and yeah, we've got a lot of stuff going on all the time. Um, so yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Perfect, perfect. So my first question is, from your experience, what are the biggest factors that make video games just take years to develop?
Why do they take years to develop? Um, Well, I would say that most of the time video games. Um, I mean, it depends on the game, but most of them take a team of people to make a game. This is something I always say to my intro to game class, which is one of the first classes in our degree that we offer at Dallas College. Um, I always tell them that building a game is like building a house, right? The first thing you need to do is you need many different people, many different trades to do the various things. For example, you need the architect to design the plan. You need the tile guy to come in and do the tile. You need the plumbing people. You need electrical. You need all the various things in the video to build a home. And a video game is no different. You need producers, game designers, level designers, programmers, different kinds of artists, whether it's like a 3D environment artist, a 2D graphic artist, um, user interface people, animators. I mean, the list just kind of goes on and on. And, you know, you kind of start off and you make kind of a game plan for your game, what's called a game design document, where you kind of lay out kind of what everything is, and then you figure out the team of people that you're going to need. Then you build your team, and then you use project management software to kind of task out everything to each team member, and then you kind of schedule it all out, and then you start developing your game, and you kind of get something playable, and it either works or it doesn't, and you identify what things work and what things don't work, and then you make adjustments along the way. You're going to have problems. There's going to be you name it. I mean, anything and everything can happen during a video game development cycle, and then you get to the end, and the end is almost the hardest part of making a game, because you're just making all the little tiny little adjustments, which are oftentimes a lot harder than putting in the big chunks at the beginning, like your levels and your characters and your music and your visual effects and your whatever. Making the tiny little adjustments to make everything, to refine everything, is usually pretty tricky. And then depending on the platform that you're releasing on, whether it's like Nintendo Switch or PlayStation or Xbox or mobile, or even PC, there's various processes at the end where you have to submit your game, and it has to go through approvals, whether that's Microsoft or Sony, or even if you're putting it on Steam, there's an approval process, and they always find stuff, and they come back and they say you got to fix all this stuff, and then you fix it and you submit it, and then they come back and they say, oh, here's more stuff, and it's just a process. So like for example, a new game that's coming out that I just heard was pushed back was called Grand Theft Auto. The new Grand Theft Auto. What are they
So
on? Six now or something. And I was talking with somebody about that the other day, and when they push that stuff back, I mean, any and everything can go wrong when you're doing, especially things that have never been done before. You're always trying to do bigger and better things. um, but for that particular franchise, I mean, there's nothing else like Grand Theft Auto, so those guys don't have to worry about losing customers or upsetting their customers. You know, they're even if somebody gets upset that the date's getting pushed back, they're still gonna buy Grand Theft Auto 6. You know what I'm saying?
We're all gonna like buy it either way. So
Yeah, exactly. But man, games take a long time because it's a lot of people. They're doing various things. Just anything and everything can go wrong, and usually does. Great game developers are great problem solvers, and they just you start working, and you hit a problem, and you just solve it as quickly as possible in the best possible way, and then you just move forward.
yeah, you mentioned there's like a lot of challenges that come with game development. Like anything could go wrong. What are some of the challenges that small studios and professional studios face when managing a project?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something that, especially like at Dallas College, that we focus on a lot is what can go wrong in solving those problems. It's oftentimes like I don't know how familiar you are with like professional sports, but like NFL teams, what they do when they practice on a weekly basis, they practice for very specific scenarios, like when they're on the 10-yard line, when they're on the goal line, kickoff returns, very specific scenarios that happen every single game. And that's what we practice as well. We focus on these scenarios that happen during a development cycle that usually go wrong. Like one specific scenario is, as you're building a game, you have people that come into the company that are new. And oftentimes there's various softwares that we use. One of them's called a repository, or what's the name of it? Basically, it's like it's where we store the files for the game project as we're going along, and those are usually like in the cloud, right? And so you can use, there's various softwares. One of them is called Perforce. Another one's called GitHub, which you may have heard of. There's various ones, and oftentimes when we're bringing in, say, like artists from different fields, like the film field. Like say somebody did 3D animation on movies, and we're bringing them into games. Well, chances are they've never used like a virtual repository before, where they have worked with other game developers and are using their files, and there's a little bit of a learning curve there. And oftentimes what always happens is that thing is just breaking, right? Like some new person will come in. I've seen it every single time. I see it every single semester with our classes. Somebody ends up deleting the entire game, and it's hilarious when it happens. But that's why you have that kind of software, because it's called version control software, and that's why you have that kind of software, because what it does is it creates a version every time somebody submits some work to the game or the cloud. It creates a different version of the game, and it captures that version history. So if something gets messed up, you can roll back to the previous version, or you can go to a different version in time. Let's say that there was a file you needed to get in that version that's better than the one you have now, or whatever the case may be. But in some cases, you can come in for the day, and the very first thing you're doing is, just before you're doing any development that moves the game forward, you're just fixing problems. Somebody came in and broke something, and you need to fix it, right? And that's not moving the game forward. That's just solving a problem that just happened that day. You know what I'm saying? So you think about like a game development timeline, and you can think about if everything's perfect and nothing goes wrong, you're just making progress every single day. That's like a dream scenario. The reality is you come in and you're probably fixing 3 or 4 things that have broke before you can even, help the game move forward. So there's just so many things that can go wrong, and you just need to understand. It's best, that's why we have video game school, right? Like what we do before, our students graduate and they go out into the industry. We work on games, and we we get them as far along on these games as possible so they can go through these different scenarios of learning and breaking things and getting comfortable, so that they make the mistakes while they're in school, so that when they go out into the real world, they've already have experience, and they're
Yeah.
like, they don't make those mistakes, when it really matters. Not that it doesn't matter in school, but it's different when you're working at a company and there's money on the line, and milestones that they have to hit in order to get paid. Just the stakes are a lot higher, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. Do you think that's like a common misconception people have? Like, oh, game development is just like really long. It's just, people meeting deadlines. But as you said, now there's just obstacles throughout the entire development process, not just through the end.
Yeah, I mean, that goes for anything. I mean, game development's no different than like any career field. I mean, you go in for the day, there's problems to be solved. Um, you're trying to move something forward, things break. I mean, it's the same as anything else. The cool thing about video game development is that it's fun, and it's not fun for everybody. We've seen students come in and it's just not for them, right? They're like, this is cool or whatever, but it's just not for me. But there are so many jobs in the video games industry and so many different ways, that you can, or different positions on a team now, where you can make an impact. There's generally something for everybody, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, I think a lot of people that come into our game design program, they like playing video games and they want to know about a career in the video games industry. And so they want to explore that. That's probably about the majority. But playing games and making games is two completely different things.
Yeah. That's what I've learned throughout the years. Just like watching documentaries or anything, it's a lot. It seems super fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for a very long time, and I'm certainly passionate about it. And we have a lot of students that are very passionate about it. It's fun. I would say game development is one of the most interesting media types because you need so many different people in order to pull it off, and it all has to come together. It all has to come together. All these different people have to come together and make this one thing. And it's just very interesting to have all these different people come together. The analogy that I used at the beginning of like building a house is another way, another similar thing where it's like, you just have all these different people that come together, from building a house from scratch. It's very similar. Although building a house is very linear, right? So you design the home, and then you get some approvals, and you build the foundation, and then you lay out the plumbing and the whatever, and then you pour the foundation, and then you build the frame, and then you put the sheetrock, and then so there's kind of a linear process to it, and there is a linear process to game development too. But since it's code and art and stuff, there is a non-linear component too, where there's just all kinds of stuff kind of going on at the same time, and it all needs to kind of come together. And as things come together, things break, and you have to fix it, and there needs to be really good communication, and it's a lot, but it's super cool.
Oh, absolutely. Do you think that's why there's like long development cycles now? And do you think long development cycles are not necessarily like a bad thing, but like they're a sign of a higher quality game and like lots of detail?
Um, I mean, I touched on long development cycles a little bit earlier in here, but I think long development cycles are just, it could be anything. I mean, you know, one of the things that I've noticed that really helps when developing games is when you start off with a really good plan, right? You really take a little bit more time than than maybe you planned for to just build out your plan. You build out your game design document and just make sure that you just you've just nailed it. Before you touch any code, before you get into an engine, before you do anything, you just lay out everything. And also, you really plan out like your tasks, and you figure out, okay, this person needs to do these things, this person needs to do these things, and then you hit the go button, and then you start production. I've noticed that, when people, this is probably pretty rare now, that people just wake up one day and they're like, I'm just going to start making a game. And they just open up like Unity or Unreal and just start making stuff. That is just not, I mean, that, I don't even know what they call that. There's a term in programming called vibe coding. This might be like vibe development or something, but it's just, if you really want to make an impact, it's good to just really have a good solid plan going forward. Otherwise, you're just going to be figuring things out as you go. And there's just so many things that you're going to have to figure out as you go anyway. You might as well just have as much figured out as possible from the get-go to just limit your speed bumps along the way.
Okay, so yeah, I just have like a clear and cut vision before just expanding and trying to like develop everything all at once.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you think games are harder to make now as from like 10 years ago?
No, definitely not. Well, I'll say yes and no. From the development side, definitely no. I mean, I come from the side of the industry where every single time we wanted to make a game, we basically had to start from scratch. All the assets we had to build, all the code we had to write. I mean, I worked for a company that, they used to scream all the time when we would, at the end of, during video game cycles, they were like, we need to build an asset library of, like bricks or chairs or, even like chunks of code that we can reuse. And we just never got around to doing it because we were always so busy. But nowadays, when you open up like Unreal Engine, for example, you can click on like templates of, first person shooter or third person game, or like a vehicle game or a flyer, 2D side scroller. I mean, there's these templates where you just click go and it already creates you a template of like, there's a camera, there's lights, there's a character, there's code, there's inputs, controllers work. I mean, you get all this stuff out of the box. So right then and there, that helps speed you up. And then also, Unity and Unreal both have asset stores where you can go get environments and 3D art and characters with rigs and animations and visual effects and sound effects and even music. I mean, it's incredible. So no, I think from a development standpoint, there's so much content already there that helps springboard your development. And that is definitely what we do. In my intro to game class, we do not create stuff from scratch. Most of the time what we do is we will, what I say is it's not asset class, it's game development class. I teach my students how to make games, not make assets. They learn the entire game making process from start to finish in my class, and then they go on, and then further down the degree, when they specialize into what they're going to do, whether that's 3D art or 3D animation or whatever, they go get better at making assets for that as they go on in their college time. But my goal is to teach everybody how to make a game from start to finish, and we generally use templates. We use already created assets. It's like going out and buying a kit of Legos where all the pieces are already there and you have a picture and you just like put it together. That's generally what we're doing in my class. The second part of that question is, so why I said yes and no. And by the way, AI is also becoming a huge part of game development, and I think, my opinion, will become a massive part of game development going forward, where you have, right now you can already use AI to help you write code for game development. I mean, like non-programmers can use any of the AIs out there to write you simple Unity scripts for Unity. I did one the other day. We wrote a quick Unity script to do, I can't remember what it was, some simple feature. It was like double jump or dash or, oh man, I can't remember what it was, sprint or just simple stuff like that. Like that's just a simple like C# script in Unity. And, an artist could just go to Copilot and say, write me that. And then they just go into Unity and create a new script, copy and paste it in, fix a few little things, and it's good to go. But I think going forward, if not already, I haven't even looked, that I think AI is going to be integrated into these video game engines. And you can already do this third party, but I think you'll just be able to like go into a video game engine and say, create me this asset, and it'll like, whether it's like a 3D model or a 2D piece of art or something, it'll create the asset inside the engine and then and then it'll have all the stuff ready to go. Okay, so those are all the things that make development way easier. One of the things that makes the game world harder, I think, is that I've heard this quote before. It's never been easier. I heard this quote recently. It's never been easier to make a game, but it's certainly been harder to market a game. Okay, I saw some statistics the other day that there were like hundreds of games, okay, that got published onto Steam that didn't even make enough money to pay for the price that they paid to launch it on Steam. For example, Steam I think charges like $100 to create an account and to publish a game, right? What that means is that those people spent all that time, made those games, and published it on Steam, and they weren't even able to make $100 in revenue in order to cover that cost, right? Now, I don't know any of those games. I don't know any of that stuff, but that's really interesting. But what I think is that there's so much noise out there. It's super hard to market games because, I mean, there's just everywhere you go, like on your phone or on the internet or whatever, there's advertisements being thrown at you for everything. I mean, you go on social media and it's like you can't open your phone without seeing something being marketed to you, right? They've found so many ways to penetrate. And so just think about that from like say you're an indie developer, that you publish a game. Just think about that, like how hard it is to actually, market that game and get that content out there in front of people so that they can see it. It's very, very hard. It's very, very hard for independent game developers to compete with these big game publishers like your Electronic Arts and your Blizzard and your Bethesda and all these big people who have these big marketing budgets and can do commercials, it can do ads and all this sort of stuff. You really, as an independent game developer, you really have to get very creative with how you market your game in order to penetrate and get in front of people who would want to buy it.
That's what I've seen lately with indie games. They're kind of like rising to the top now. They're getting more popular. Like for like friend games, like which one am I thinking of right now? Like Peak, for example, or like games like that. They're getting a lot more popular. Do you know, or what do you think that is with like indie developers?
To be honest with you, marketing is not my forte. So this is just going to be like speculation. But I think that the cream rises to the top. I think that's always going to be a true statement. Is that if you make something good, and you're consistent about getting your message out there and just trying to push it as much as you can, it's going to get eyeballs, and I think people are going to be interested in it, which is why you see successful independent games. A couple of them I can mention. Um, oh man, let's see. Castle Crashers was one of them. That's a really interesting story. I don't know if you remember Castle Crashers. Look up that story. Um, yeah, there. I mean, there's a bunch of ones, but I just think you just have to be really creative. I think you kind of have to develop a little bit of a fan base, and you have to kind of be unique in what your offering is. I think if you're just doing kind of the same thing over and over again, it's kind of what I like to say is, like, for students that are making their first games, what I like to say is don't reinvent the wheel, just just make a wheel but give it a different twist,
Yes.
right? That way you have like kind of the bedrock that hey, this game type works, this genre works, but my thing is like this thing. So when you describe it to somebody, you can say, it's Grand Theft Auto with aliens, or it's Call of Duty with zombies, right?
Yes.
Like if you can describe your game to somebody like in that little of a statement, like that's usually, in that simplistic approach, that's usually going to be a good way to start. Sometimes I have students, they sit down with me and they like start to describe out their game, and it's like, we're 60 seconds in and they're still describing how their game is going to be, and I'm just like, man, this is way too much. Attention spans are like super short these days. There's just nobody has time for anything. So you got to just be really simple in your approach.
Okay. I kind of want to touch back on timelines for game production. So, how do you teach your students to like plan realistic timelines or deadlines for game production?
Man, that's a really good question. um, well, first of all, I'll go back to what I just said. Starting with a very simple idea. In our intro to game class, what we do is we give kind of our students a little taste of everything. They try a level design. They try, getting characters in the game. They try, some animation stuff and some visual effects and some programming. And then they get a taste for what it is, and then we kind of put them onto a team, and then we kind of game plan out an idea for a game. And generally, I try to make them do games that are like, like I said, Grand Theft Auto, but aliens or something, right? So, not that scale of Grand Theft Auto. We're not doing Grand Theft Auto in one class, but we focus on smaller games, and I think that's really, we just focus on simple. We focus on small. We focus on stuff that's already proven. My main concern is them learning the process, not making the next best game. And so, I try to position them for success in something that's achievable, and not, send them down the path of trying to make Halo in 16 weeks. It's just not realistic.
Okay, I see. Well, this is my final question. So, what do you think what makes the time and effort worth it in the end?
Um, well, okay, so I'll tell you what made the time and effort for our class. I'd say my intro to game class is, the students, when they finally get it, when I've shown them a little taste of everything, and they learn how to use the version control software, and we're all working together as a team, and we have a plan, and we've got our producers, and we're using our project management software, and it all kind of comes together, and I see that sort of like aha moment where it's like they've got it and they're working together as a team, and I can sort of, the teaching sort of stops for me, the main teaching and I can sort of step away and allow the machine to kind of start working, because that is really cool for me. I like that. Once I've kind of put the machine in place, because my background was in art. I started as an animator, and then I evolved into more production, so producer. And so as a producer, my job is to kind of put the puzzle pieces together and position them in a way to where the project's moving forward. And then when there are problems along the way, me and the other producers jump in and try to solve the problems, and make sure that we remove any problem burden off the team as much as possible. But that's one really cool thing that I like. The other cool thing that I like is, when we get to the end, obviously, of class, and the students have something to show, that final product, whether it's a prototype or what have you, that's really cool, where they've gone through the entire class and they're like, I've got it. You know what I mean? I've got it. We did this. We accomplished this. So it's accomplishing.
That's awesome. Just like once they get the ball rolling, you just look back and look at like the big project you made. It was really cool. Yeah. All right. Well, those are all the questions I have for you.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm happy to do it, and if anybody wants to get a hold of me, my email address is ccurra@dallascollege.edu, and yeah, happy to answer any questions about our program or anything else we have going on at the college.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for your insight. It was a huge help for my story. And whenever it gets published, I'll be sure to send it to you.
All right, man. Sounds good. Nice to meet you. Thanks again.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well.